Hi friends, welcome on YourPedia, and this video is related to Inspector of Factories module of Andhra Pradesh Public Service Commission and risk assessment and hazard identification and terms like PHA, HAZAN, HAZOP, those kind of things. So important topic and interesting topic. So let's start our lecture now. So this Inspector of Factories Andhra Pradesh Public Service Commission job calendar 15th of August notification is going to come, and by that time we are going to complete this entire module for you, and you will be going for it. So all branches, chemical, mechanical, electrical, if you have 2 years of experience, Inspector of Factories, you can join this job, friends. And this is the pattern of the exam. So how the exam is going to take place, how it is going to push forward, that is the meaning of it. So syllabus consists of part 1 general studies, mental ability, and part 2 is a technical, which industrial and occupational safety, health, environment. That is a topic which is given to us. YourPedia is providing you both the papers, paper 1, paper 2, and as I told you before, your notification comes, YourPedia is going to complete this entire module for you. My today's lecture is related to one of the topics here which is mentioned, and that topic is topic number 3, that is process safety and system safety analysis. Process and system safety. Process, that means what process you follow, and system is like where you follow that process, the entire system. So in that we will go for PHA, HAZAN, HAZOP, these kind of terminologies we are going to discuss. So what is PHA, what is HAZAN, what is HAZOP, that is what we are going to discuss. System life cycle, that is also I am going to discuss in today's topic. So maybe that majority of the things will be discussed today, and you will be completing this PHA, HAZAN, HAZOP, system life cycle, and safety considerations we are going to talk about in today's lecture. So this document is available to you. Typically what YourPedia does, so YourPedia provides you the really exam relevant content. We provide you the content which is only related to exam, and if you go through this content, you can easily qualify this exam. And the second is, our videos are straight, simple, short, straight to the point, simple to understand, and short, so that you don't waste much time. So this video will be of 20 minutes to 30 minutes. Along with this content, lot of question practice. So you should do a lot of question practice from these topics, and confidence will come only if you practice questions and then you go for test series. So comparison of hazard analysis method. So if somebody asks you what are these PHA, HAZAN, HAZOP, we have never heard of these terms. Friends, first full form of these terms you should know, and then these all are hazard analysis methods. You know what is hazard? Hazard is risky situation, dangerous situation in the workplace or industry. So when you work in the industry, there can be dangerous situation. Let's say when you go for mining, or when you go for tunnel making, or when you go for oil industry where there can be oil or fumes, or when you are on construction site. As engineers, these are the places where there can be danger, unsafe situation, there can be hazardous situation, right? So you may be vulnerable to that hazardous situation, and there can be risk. So I want to first identify where the hazardous situation is there. I give you another example. In the house, where do you find hazardous situation, where you can fall down, and you can come across with some injury? In the house, whenever the floor is wet, there is a water and floor is wet, you must have observed many times that you fall down because you skid. So because water was on the floor, you skid. That is a hazardous situation. So the moment you see that hazardous situation, you have to either dry that particular floor, or you have to prevent people from going there. Maybe you have to put something like, okay, don't go there, there's a water actually. So that is called identification of hazardous situation. There is a naked electric wire. This wire is naked and there is electric current in that, hazardous situation. There is a water on the floor, hazardous situation. There is a leakage in the LPG cylinder, hazardous situation. You have to identify that, and then you are to do the risk assessment. Risk assessment that, okay, this hazardous situation can lead. Hazardous situation simply means that there is a danger, but that danger has not opened up as of now, and the situation may be under control. So you are to basically make people aware and identify the risk. You have to do risk assessment. I mean, what is the risk? How big can this problem be? How much damaging it can be? That is called risk assessment. Assessment and then mitigation of that. That is how we do it. So something like that we have to do. So hazardous analysis methods are PHA, HAZAN, HAZOP. So this is PHA full form is process hazard analysis. HAZAN is hazard analysis. Hazard, HAZ means hazard, AN means analysis. So HAZ and AN, hazard analysis. HAZ, hazard, operation operability study. So understand these terms. PHA, right? So what PHA is? It is to identify the hazard. Number one, it is to identify the hazard. And what is HAZAN? That is to detail risk quantification, risk assessment. So the one word for HAZAN is risk assessment. I'll explain that in detail. HAZOP is like, okay, so let's see detail analysis, systematic examination. So detail analysis of what if this goes wrong, what if this goes wrong, detail analysis of the situation. This is, okay, identify the hazard. Where is the floor wet? Identified. Risk assessment and detail analysis. That is how you are to understand it. So we are going to discuss these terms here today. So let's understand now journal term which is called HIRA. So what is HIRA? Hazard identification and risk assessment. That is what I told you in the beginning. Wet floor and naked electric wire, that is called hazard identification. So this is the approach to identify potential hazard. Hazard is always potential, like there can be a problem, and then making the evaluation of risk and implement the measures to mitigate or eliminate the risk. Mitigate means to reduce, eliminate means to finish the risk. So it is critical process in the workplace safety and industrial operations, and this is very, very important for safety of workers, public, everyone. So HIRA is nothing but it is the systematic approach to identify the hazard, evaluate the associated risk. I mean, if I ask you that water on floor, wet floor is hazardous, naked electric wire is a hazard, LPG cylinder leakage is a hazard, which one has maximum risk? Hazardous situations are there, but which one has maximum risk? LPG cylinder leakage has maximum risk, then electric wire, then wet floor. So hazardous situation I have identified. PHA means let's identify the hazardous situation, and I identified 3 hazardous situations at home. But then I did risk assessment, associated risk assessment I did, and I found that risk is maximum of LPG cylinder and then electric wire and then wet floor. And then next comes, okay, how can I mitigate it? How can I eliminate it? How can I eliminate it? So electric wire should not be naked. Get a new wire from the market and it should be insulated. Risk is eliminated. Mitigate means reduce. Keep the LPG cylinder in the balcony outside. So even if there is a leakage is not in the house. That is a mitigation. So these are the mitigation reduction. And then detail analysis. HAZOP means find out other things in the house. These are the 3 things you identified. But what if the things which you are keeping at the top of almirah can fall down? That can also be a hazardous situation on you. So identify the other things also. So what is the correct sequence of HIRA? First is identify the hazard. Exam mein question can exactly come like this sequence: identification of hazard, risk assessment, elimination and reduction of the risk, recommendation and preparedness of the risk register. So risk register is the last. So understand that risk register thing comes at the last. Now, identification of hazard. What are the terms involved in this? We will discuss later on. PHA and HAZOP both are involved in identification of the hazard. This is the first step in HIRA process. Hazard is like situation which has potential to cause harm to you. I explained that. So you have to physically, chemically, biologically, ergonomically, you have to identify in the place. I have given you the example also. So first step in the HIRA is identification of the hazard, and the 2 terms which are related to that is PHA and HAZOP. So even PHA is hazard identification. HAZOP also does the identification through detail analysis. As I told you that do some more analysis and find out where can be hazardous situation. That is also involved in that. Then assessment of the risk. How do we do assessment of the risk? So assessment of the risk involved HAZAN. So exam mein question comes, which one is related to risk assessment? Answer is HAZAN. So risk is identified, hazard is identified, then find out what is more risky. LPG cylinder is the most risky. So severity, how severe is the hazardous situation? So probability of how much damage or harm it can make. LPG cylinder can make the maximum damage to you. So it is both quantitative and this is both qualitative. So we make risk matrix to classify risk as low, medium, high. So we do risk matrix. So fault tree analysis or failure mode effect analysis, these are basically related to this risk assessment. Quantification or qualitative or quantitative methods are done for assessment of the risk. Then comes elimination, how to eliminate and how to reduce the risk. That is basically HAZOP and HAZAN. These two terms. Let me tell you, there is a risk hierarchy. How to eliminate risk? There is a hierarchy. The best way is eliminate, remove. एलपीजी सिलेंडर को घर से रिमूव कर दो तो रिस्क खत्म हो जाएगा, बिल्कुल खत्म हो जाएगा. बट क्या एलपीजी सिलेंडर को घर से रिमूव कर सकते हैं हम? नहीं कर सकते. वी कैन नॉट रिमूव बिकॉज वी वांट टू कुक द फूड. So then substitution. Let's not use LPG cylinder. Let's use the induction, or let's use electric, things. So LPG cylinder ka risk is over. I found the substitution. Third is engineering control. Engineering control, as I told you, LPG cylinder ka the point is like LPG cylinder will not be through cylinder. It will not come. It will come through pipe from outside. LPG cylinder को मैंने pipe से replace कर दिया. Engineering control. Administrative control means, okay, nobody will go to the kitchen except this fellow, and the LPG cylinder will be outside where nobody will go. Administrative control, that I'm not letting people go there. And personal protective equipment, put the mask. Even if there is a gas around in the house, put the mask and move around so you will not die. So that is the least effective. Personal protective equipment is least effective. Best is elimination. So this is the strategy of hierarchy, friends. So elimination is best, followed by substitution, engineering control, administrative control, personal protective equipment. So these are some of the methodologies. And then recommendation. It involves all these three. So preparation of the risk register is the last step of HIRA. What is risk register? It is basically the document which is identifying the hazard, doing the assessment of risk, control measures, recommendation, ongoing reference for monitoring and reviewing. Right? So it is ensuring the accountability for continuous improvement. It is ensuring the accountability and continuous improvement. What are various important points about HIRA? So PhA and HAZOP, they identify the hazard, right? Risk assessment, HAZAN, elimination, this. So these four things which I just discussed with you, just summary for you. Which stage, what is involved? And then it is, HIRA is a dynamic process. It should be regularly done. Effective communication and training is very important. And somebody asks you which one is the international standard for safety. It is ISO 45001. Occupational Health and Safety Management System. Right? It can significantly reduce the incidence, improve overall operational efficiency. It can do that. And documentation and record keeping, that is risk register. Now, let's study all these terms in detail. What is PHA? Process Hazard Analysis. Identification of the hazard. So PHA, full form, please remember, Process Hazard Analysis. That means identify the hazardous situation. PHA means identify the hazardous situation. So it is safety study which is to identify all the hazardous situations in the process that may lead to the accident. It is a health checkup. It is entirely health checkup. Also it talks about when you do the health checkup, you also talk about how to eliminate it. So final elimination वाला जो part है उसमें PHA का input use होता है. So basically if you ask one word related to PHA, identify the hazardous situation. Then comes HAZAN, hazardous analysis, risk assessment. So if there is a hazardous situation, there is a risk involved. How big is the risk? We have to quantify that. We have to find out that if damage happens, how big is going to be the damage. So hazard already has been identified in the PHA stage. Now we have to find out what are the chances that this will lead to. LPG cylinder leakage itself will not create a harm to you unless until there is a fire. So right, so how big is the consequence, how severe the damage can be? This is the LPG cylinder kept at the petrol pump, or there are more LPG cylinders in the vicinity. This LPG cylinder is kept in the open ground. LPG cylinder leakage in open ground is less risky than LPG cylinder kept on the petrol pump. Agree? So that is a point. So how big is the risk? That is what we are going to do. So it is the quantitative analysis of the known hazard. Right? So it focuses on risk assessment once the hazard has been identified. That is called HAZAN. And third is HAZOP, hazard and operability study. It is detailed team-based study to find out the problems. We have to find out the problems in the process by examining each part of the system step by step. So this is team-based study to find out the problems. Let's find out problems in the process. So let's do detailed analysis. Sir, I identified 3 hazardous situations in home. LPG cylinder leakage, electric wire, this thing, naked electric wire and wet floor. But there can be more situations. So do the detailed analysis now and find it out more. No, more, less, reverse, other than all these things you do, identify what may go wrong, what can be wrong, what can be the problem. So not only you have to find the hazard, but also identify operational problems that may lead to the trouble later on. So it is a detailed structured method for identifying the potential deviation from the normal process. What can go wrong? Suppose there's a kid which is playing with the wire. There's a small child who's playing with the wire. As of now, wire is okay, everything is okay, but he's playing with the wire. Now you also foresee that this child, if it does like this, it can lead to the problem, right? So you have to identify what may go wrong, what more problems can come. As of now, they are not there. HAZOP says this is a problem. I identify the hazardous situation, it is existing. This is telling that a hazardous situation may come because of this. So in future, it may can create the trouble. And this is a summary, friends. What already hazard exists, PHA. What is the risk involved, HAZAN. What more hazardous situation can come, what may go wrong, HAZOP. PHA, HAZAN, HAZOP. Remember these 3 terms. And ये table है, जो भी हमने किया उसका table. So PHA is all about already the hazard which is existing. HAZAN is how big is the risk. सारा डिटेल में देख लो और क्या हो सकता है. See everything again. What more risk can be there? So this table you remember, friends. PHA, HAZAN, HAZOP. So narrow is this. This is identification. This I think by mistake it is done. This is narrow. This is broad. So this I think is by mistake it is done. This has to be here. Let me correct it. And this is broad. Right, so this is very, very narrow because it is only talking about existing hazard. This is broad, this is detailed. So right, so this is what is PHA, hazard, HAZON. This is what we have done already. So PHA, what hazard exists, HAZAN, how risky is each situation, HAZOP, can there be more problem, can there be more issue. Some example for you, how you have to see this. So the safety team will review entire plant process and identify this is the problem. That is PHA. Now, how big can be the risk? That is HAZAN. HAZOP is like, okay, what can be the more risky situation? And I'll give you some more example also of that. Now, what is system life cycle? System life cycle, it is the structured process through which a system, technical or organizational progresses initial stage of planning, development, deploying, operation and retirement. So how the system moves, anything. So first you define the system, then you do designing, implementing, installation, documentation, evaluation. This is how the system life cycle goes. When you want to create a system, first of all you will have ideation. First you will plan that how the system will go. So first stage will be you are conceiving the idea, concept or plan. Then you are developing the system. Then you are testing or deploying the system. Then operation, execution, and finally retirement or disposal. That is how every system goes. So what is the process of system? System life cycle. Any system, you are conceiving the idea. I want to create a system. So planning and ideation is first stage. Then you have to basically design that, and then you have to implement it, deploy it, and then you have to execute it, operate it, apply, and then disposal. And safety consideration is integral part of entire system life cycle. So whenever system life cycle you go from planning to design to making or construction, operation, modification, decommissioning, so this entire system may you have to proceed forward. Like early in the life cycle of system life cycle, PHA goes, and then HAZAN, HAZOP continuously go. Safety analysis steps are this: hazard identification, risk assessment, safeguard and control, human factors. You have to follow the regulatory compliance, environmental factors. These are some of the steps in safety analysis. So first step in safety analysis is identification of the hazardous situation. That is the first step for which PHA helps. Process hazard analysis is primarily used in hazard identification, which is the first step in safety analysis. It identifies the hazard across entire process. HAZOP also contributes to some extent because of the analysis. HAZOP and PHA are used in this stage. Then risk assessment. Risk assessment is largely HAZAN, hazard analysis. Quantitative risk assessment is done, qualitative is also done. Safeguard and control, appropriate measure to prevent and mitigate. So as HAZOP recommends a lot of things here. And human factor, human error and limitations, that also are to be considered. That is also safety analysis. Environmental factor identifies the environmental hazards, studies process deviations that can be done. And then regulatory compliance. So all regulatory compliances can be like this. So this is the PHA technique. PHA, how PHA does hazard analysis, what if analysis, checklist analysis, fault tree analysis, event tree analysis, layer protection analysis. So these all basically are used to identify the hazardous situation. Fault tree analysis, event tree analysis, layer protection analysis, these all are for hazard analysis. What if analysis, brainstorming. What if this goes wrong, that goes wrong, checklist, you identify the check. Fault tree analysis, deductive analysis that starts with top level accident and works backward to identify the factors. Event tree analysis, inductive analysis that start with the initial event and go to the potential consequences. So fault tree analysis start with the top level and this is a deductive. यहाँ पे incidence हो गया, accident हो गया, incidence हो गया, what must be the reason? Fault tree analysis means go to the root cause, that is fault tree analysis. Event tree analysis means आपका inductive कि ओके क्या क्या हो सकता है और क्या क्या हो सकता है. एंड लेयर ऑफ प्रोटेक्शन एनालिसिस, लोपा इज अ रिस्क assessment technique, independent protection layers to prevent, mitigate the hazard. So process and system safety analysis के benefit क्या हो सकते हैं? These are the benefits: reduced risk of accident and incidents, improved operational reliability, reduced downtime, lost production, enhanced regulatory compliance. ये सारे उसके benefits हैं. And then lot of questions, friends. Question ढंग से कर लेना because questions are the main things which will give you the confidence. So our today's lecture was related to HIRA, that is risk analysis assessment, how it is to be done. We discussed the term like PHA, HAZAN, HAZOP, how it is to be done, hazard identification, risk assessment, mitigation. Those are the things which we did, and I'm very sure if you revise it well, you will surely get some questions from here which you can solve. Thank you.